class contains
Take note of the following reminders. Make sure you are registered to the webinar to have your e-certificate of participation. Visit certificate.vibalgroup.com to generate your proof of attendance. Place your questions on the comment box allotted during the session and they will be addressed by our speaker later on. Share the video using hashtag LearnAs1PH as our official hashtag to our Vibal webinars. Experience learning, Kavibal? And now, to proceed with our webinar this afternoon, it is my pleasure to introduce to you our distinguished speaker today. He is a consultant and evaluator for K-12 Philippine Basic Education, the curriculum and academic consultant of Sisters of Mary. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome Brother Roderick M. Aguirre.
Good afternoon, viewers. A wonderful Monday to all of you out there, and what a way to start the learning for the whole week. I know most of you are busy with the start of classes, and some of you in the private schools already have started your classes a week ago, and I hope you're doing well. And I know you're facing a lot of challenges, and no matter what these challenges are, we are here with you to help you with the journey towards having a good distance education and presenting online. And we are growing with you. Myself, taken into account, is also in the process of learning and doing online learning and delivery of my goods and my services. Nonetheless, it does not stop me from improving myself and my skills. Although previous years and the previous months, just this year, I had difficulty adjusting to the new demands in the educational program. But little by little, we're gonna get there. But before I begin, I would like to give a shout out to the following people who've been with us, been following this webinar for the past few weeks and months even. So I would like to say a shout out to Miss Rosalie Chavez Faune from Quezon City, my former student and anak ko po. And Mary Ann Ramos Boctil from San Pablo City, Laguna, from the private schools of San Pablo. Grace Sheila Ramo Matiaga, a former student of mine, also is from Bulacan. Precious Vergado Marquez Quinto from Imus, Cavite, of course. To Miss Annalyn Valenzuela Barles, my sister in the confraternity from the Division of Imus, Cavite. To the BIL teachers out there, to Sir Abad, hello, and to Ma'am Shella Valenzuela. Kudos to all of you, and of course to a good friend of mine was just been recently installed as the assistant superintendent, schools district superintendent of the province of Cavite, Mr. Galileo Go. Okay, and of course finally to Mom Carol and Mom Nieves, Nelsie Nieves from Sisters of Mary Schools, and all the teachers of the Sisters of Mary. Good afternoon. Our topic for this afternoon, to jumpstart the week, would be it's all diagnosis. And we've been talking about in the past few weeks about how to help our students who are struggling so much with their learning, and what we can do to provide them with the necessary set skills for them to be able to overcome some of their deficits and the things that they have difficulty with, so that they will be able to survive the demands of online and distance education, especially for those students who have low literacy skills or are still struggling with their literacy abilities. Today, we're going to talk about how we can help our schools and our teachers diagnose those problems. Because no matter how good, how effective we think our strategies, our instructional plans, but if we have not profiled our students in terms of their comprehension skills, we will not be able to at least be in context in planning the lessons and planning the modules to be delivered to our students. And that's why my topic today is all about how to diagnose the comprehension skills of our students on both narrative and informational texts. Now, if you're asking me if we have a topic on diagnosing early literacy skills of our students, like decoding skills, phonemic awareness, and all, yes, we have, but that would be another topic and it will be delivered by another expert. And please stay tuned so that you get all of the information you need for you to be able to proceed with your diagnosis for your students. So before I start, discussing at length, I would like to share my PowerPoint with you first. All right. Okay. So let me begin with my first slide. My hair is, anyway, it's getting long and it's curly, and probably by December or by the next month, you'll see that my hair gets longer and all. And as we grow, it's like my hair is growing as we grow together here at Vibal webinars. That's funny. All right. So again, if you have, if you would like to have a copy of my handouts in the handout format of this, please do not hesitate to place your request to my mediator so that they can provide you with the handouts, not just today, but also the topics that I presented in the previous months and the previous weeks. My topic today is all about diagnosing comprehension skills of students. And this is more about identifying students' strengths and weaknesses in comprehending narrative and informational text. It is very important for us teachers to know who among our students have possible problems. Of course, we wouldn't know if our students are struggling, correct? By doing simple diagnosis to our students, we will now be able to at least pinpoint some of the weaknesses of our students before we start our classes, or at least before we continue on with our part 1 lessons. We will be able to identify the students who will be definitely struggling a lot, especially with the distance education that our students will be doing a lot of individual works, individual readings of materials at home. And there's a possibility that some of those problems that have not been identified before while they were face-to-face with a teacher at school in the previous school years, right now they will emerge because they're on their own and they are now without their consent, with their consent, of course, without prior preparation. They are now on their own and independently attacking the materials sent to them via online or via courier. The point here, ladies and gentlemen, is that it is very important for us to know who our students are in terms of their comprehension level. All right. And we're going to go through our discussion using my outline, of course. We'll start with an introduction. I'll just present three most pressing myths that teachers have about diagnosis and diagnosing students' reading comprehension. And then we will proceed to published statement, a published anecdotal record of a teacher, and analyzed by an expert as to basis for our diagnosis, our context for diagnosing students' reading comprehension, and why is it important for teachers to do diagnosis before any instruction happens. And then we'll proceed to questions, answering questions. Again, my way of discussing the topic is more of question answer format, so that it will be easier for us to get by the information. And if you have questions and clarification that you would like me to answer and make clear, do not hesitate to key in your statements and your questions on the comments box below. All right. So we are partners here, and I think it's already my third month here with Vibal and doing webinars and giving webinars. And I think we are all friends here and we're a community. So let us not hesitate and let us not be strangers to each other. I know I have not seen you in person, but I believe by having this kind of conversations online, we get to be intellectually to be together, and I think we are acquainted already because of our goal to help our students become better at what they do. Then finally, we have an open forum. This is where I entertain your questions and clarify some big concepts that you think I may not have clarified during the course of my discussion. And finally, I'll present to you summarize all what we have discussed, and I present to you some challenges that I hope you will constructively take on. Let us begin. So I identified three myths that a lot of teachers and most teachers in the Philippines have believed to be standing and to be true, and that's why here this topic would help us identify these three common beliefs of our teachers and try to explain why they're myths and not and there to be busted. Right? Let us begin with statement number one. Okay, it's not opening at all. There we go. Statement number one, or belief system number one, is that reading programs were successful. A lot of teachers would say that if only our school has a reading program, we believe that our students will be successful, or most of our students will be successful. Or those schools who already have consultants who have already placed in their school a reading program believe that their students are better than the other students in the other private schools or in the other public schools. This is a myth. It's non sequitur. It doesn't follow that even if a school has a reading program, most students or all students will be successful. It depends on the reading program. The reading program must suit the kind of needs of your students, and there's no such thing as one fit all type of reading program. Okay, it has to be tailored based on the identified or diagnosed weaknesses of our students, and via this, the school or with the help of the consultant will provide, create, and design a program in order to help the students overcome those identified strengths and weaknesses. Well, basically just no weaknesses. Therefore, it does not follow that if a school has already placed reading program, all right, even if it's in the curriculum, it doesn't mean students will be successful at it. There are a lot of factors involved in having a good reading program and being successful. Diagnosis would be one of those. Second would be planning and making the program out of the results of the diagnosis. And of course, the third most important would be the reading teacher. No matter how good the program was designed to address the weaknesses of your students, if we do not have well-trained teachers or reading teachers to handle the students, then it is still nothing. Therefore, I say statement number one is busted. All right, let's proceed to statement number two. I think already started with a little formal kind of discussion, so allow me to unbutton just the topmost part of my shirt, and it's stifling me. Right. So statement number two says that if it's in the curriculum, then the children will learn it, and a balanced reading curriculum is ideal. Well, in the K to 12 curriculum and the previous curricula in the Philippines, reading has been embedded in our curriculum in Filipino, in English, and in K to 12 curriculum in the mother tongue. And then previously within this year or the early of this year and the last months of the last year, results showed that a lot of students that came from the from the K to 12 program have low proficiency, and that's very very interesting to know that if it's in the curriculum, since reading is embedded in the curriculum, why our students are not proficient in reading and writing. All right, because again, okay, even if it's embedded in the curriculum, the element of the teacher is not there. It is very important for us that no matter how good the curriculum is, how good the curriculum in stating explicitly the competencies and the learning outcomes about reading that students must be able to acquire, is not a guarantee, because if our teachers have not been thoroughly trained on how to deliver these learning competencies to our students, then it's still nothing. Curriculum is nothing if we have not well trained well, trained well our teachers. And I would believe that a lot of people out there are always blaming teachers, and I would say, okay, let's blame partly the teachers, but I would blame mostly the school administrators and the whole school education, the whole Philippine educational system, for giving our teachers, field teachers, a lot of responsibility, especially on literacy, when they have not been given no thorough training. They have been given lots of things to accomplish, documents to finish, and yet there were few trainings provided for them on basically providing them with the necessary skills to be able to teach young children to be able to read in the early grades. So let us not blame readily our teachers. Let us blame the whole educational system in the Philippines. Right? And therefore, statement number two is busted. No matter how we state all of these learning competencies about reading and how to teach beginning reading, and if training and professional training is not provided for our teachers, one deal shot, 3 days is not enough. It should be for me, it should be a lasting, a longitudinal, a lifetime perhaps, a program for all our teachers to take on. Alas, the problem in the Philippines is that we believe that if our teachers have taken, 3 days to 5 days training on teaching reading, we believe that they already equipped. No, it takes a lot of time because reading is a skill. And if we're teaching a skill, therefore our teachers who are supposed to teach the skill of reading should also be should also be skilled readers. All right. Let's now have the last statement. Short-term tutoring for struggling readers can help them catch up with their peers, and the gains made will be sustained. All right, this is not true. Right? Short-term tutoring is not a guarantee that our students who have, problems with reading will be able to overcome that in a short time, in a short period of time. It needs a longer time. These are skills that leads one to another higher form of skill. And if the skill that they have not acquired are compounded and they're in high school, then it will take more than just a month or 2 months. We can come up with a program that is intermittent, and it could be provided to our students, struggling readers, our students, probably like once a month, or no, one program per month, and then in another month or in a quarter. But it doesn't have to be just short term tutoring or a one deal shot program. There must be what we call as follow-up program, part of it, follow-up and continued support to our students. And therefore, statement number 3 is busted. All right. That will provide you with an anecdotal record, a situation of a teacher on how she utilizes diagnosis on trying to understand teachers and how diagnosis play a great role, a great part in planning for the instruction of our students. Let's read. Right. Tessa loves teaching fourth grade. And each year she understands her students better. Look, and each year she understands her students better. This is her third year. But every year, 5 or 6 of her students pose challenges for her because of the difficulty they encounter reading some of the materials she assigns, particularly for social studies and science. Even though she has taken several courses and workshops in teaching reading and writing, she's still unable to assess her students' specific areas of strength and difficulty. Thus, Tessa has decided to take a course in reading diagnosis. She hopes to acquire sufficient skill in assessment to understand her students' reading as she meets with them daily and to learn how she can provide them with appropriate instruction support. Now, it is clear in this anecdotal record from teacher Tessa that she had to admit to herself that knowing how to teach reading is not enough to be able to teach students how to read. In fact, she realizes that she needs to acquire set skills of being able to diagnose students really well. Because if she doesn't have a profile, the early profile of students in terms of their strengths and weaknesses in reading as they enter in a grade level, she will not be able to tailor a learning plan or a module or lesson plans or learning plans, however you call them, to suit the developmental needs of the reading developmental needs of students, because our students enter the school, enter the classroom in a grade level with varying literacy levels. And a lot of what's stated in our curriculum are for general types and average types of students. What if there are students who are coming in who are struggling readers or who are still beginning readers for that matter? So how would we know? And what if there are students who are or way beyond that level of weeks, beyond the level that we expect them to be in that grade level? How will we be able to come up with an enhancement program or enhancing activities for the students and not make them feel that they are being left behind, or they will feel, easily bored of the lessons because they already know that? These are the things that we need to take in before coming up with plans. And Tessa, for me, is a good teacher who reflects on what could she do to help the students better. And she's now on her third year of teaching, and her mind keeps on thinking how she can help her students. How can she understand, identify what her students need most so that she can tailor fit the learning plan she's going to design for the school year. Let's proceed. This year, she is keeping her eye on a group of about 7 students. 3 of them are quite far behind. They are having difficulty reading selections from third grade reading series. All right. She's a fourth grade teacher, and she found out that some of the students who came from the third grade are still struggling with third grade reading materials. What more? What more if they encounter readings in fourth grade? Definitely, they will struggle so much, if not, get frustrated. She's particularly curious about what John actually knows about reading and writing. She's asking the following questions: what are John's strengths on which I can build? How can I help John feel that he's part of the classroom group and encourage him to continue to develop his reading strategies? Now, I like Tessa because what's in her mind first and foremost before starting the school year is that knowing who her students are. Most Filipino teachers would just plan out. Plan out immediately their lessons, our lessons, without getting the profile of our students. And I have been advocating to all teachers in the Philippines and even Department of Education, telling them that we should give more time. We should provide more training for our teachers to help them make certain diagnosis of their students. And it's not enough that we put that in our curriculum. We need to provide our teachers with the skills, the concrete skills to be able to actually do diagnosis. How, for me, instruction is nothing if the instruction is not appropriate to the needs of the learners. And for us to know the needs of our learners, diagnosis is very important. All right. On that note, I think we have already emotionally and mentally been prepared to what we're going to discuss this afternoon. These are all preliminaries. Okay. So for me, it's very important that our minds and our hearts and well, basically everything are already ready in terms of its context, so that we will be able to understand our discussion this afternoon. Let's begin with question number one. What is diagnostic assessment? Let me graphically answer this too. Now, before any instruction happens, this is what we're supposed to be doing, all right? And this is what I've been advocating to all schools that I handle as their consultant, that we should do screening, a diagnostic screening assessment for all students, for us to be able to know who our students are. And the results should be provided readily to our teachers, so that our teachers know exactly who their students are. And they are not knowing their students during the course of the school year or teaching. And finally, teachers get to know who their students are at the middle of the school year. And that's when they're able to adjust their teaching to the students. And I believe in the middle of the school year, it's already too late. 2 quarters have already been wasted. All right. I believe it should be in the beginning of the first quarter that we get to know who our students are. All right. So before instruction, we do what we call as the diagnosis. The profiling is very important. So one, we need to profile our students in terms of their interests. And I think we have we have a webinar on student profiling, and please stay tuned on that this week with the all diagnosis and profile. Student profiling is one of the most important diagnoses that we need to come up with, so that we would know our students. That's where we get to know the learning styles of our students, their interests, and all other things that they do outside school. Now, other diagnoses that we have to do would be literacy diagnosis, for us to know the level of our students in terms of their reading skills, and of course their numeracy skills and information processing skills. So right now I'll be focusing more on comprehension, and for the early literacy, that will be delivered by someone else. I'll just focus more on the comprehension. Okay. Now, the results of the diagnosis will be the basis for the teacher to teach the students and be able to address the identified weaknesses of the students and the diagnosis. Results of the diagnosis too will be my way of knowing how I'm going to create certain groups of my students, so that I'm able to create what we call as a balanced, collaborative small group, where there are good students and there are struggling students. If our teachers do not know who their students are, and they do it by the rule of thumb and the rule of observation, especially for the distance education, it is really difficult for our teachers right now to identify students who are struggling because they have not seen their students. They have no way of seeing their students in terms of their behavior and in terms of their answer. They will only know their students after, probably the first tests have been delivered to them, and if they get to realize that some students have not grasped the lesson. And then I think, one whole module have been wasted of that. So we need to know the results and diagnosis. And this is what the topic is all about. Okay. And the teachers are able to do intervention. It just so happened that most of our intervention topics were given last week. So right now it's on diagnosis. So whatever the results of this would be, you go back to the webinars and the topics that we delivered last week. All right. Then after instruction, okay, we will now be able to evaluate whether our instruction was successful or effective. Okay. The point here, ladies and gentlemen, is that how would we know that how effective How can we evaluate whether our instruction for the whole school year was effective if we do not know the entry level of our students? So we need to know the entry level of our students so that we will be able to compare it with their exit levels, all right? And if, say, this is their entry level, say average, and then their exit level is above average, we could say that the instruction happen in between is really effective, all right? What teachers are doing all the time in the Philippines is just teach and teach and teach and teach, and not keep on modifying their teaching every year, not knowing that there's a possibility that the things that they've been doing for this year were effective and they don't have to modify them for the next year, depending again, of course, on the needs of the students. But the point here, ladies and gentlemen, is that how would teachers be able to know which of those activities that they came up with were effective or not for a specific type of group of students? We need to help our teachers be able to identify which of those plans that they created were really, really good. All right. So that's what diagnose is all about. In short, a diagnostic assessment, all right, is a form of pre-assessment where teachers can evaluate students' strengths, weaknesses, knowledge, and skills before their instruction. It is a summary of what students should have acquired, okay, in the previous school years or in the previous grade levels that are prerequisite to the grade level. Meron po ang DepEd yan, ang tawag nila ay entry assessment and exit assessment. I hope lahat ng mga public school po ay gumagamit na po ng ating entry and exit levels. I'm not exit test. At the Sisters of Mary, we have that already, well, I hope that most of the teachers see the benefit of having the results of the exit tests. Okay, we call it a unified test. More so, an identical assessment may be given post-instruction to identify if students have met a course's required learning objectives. It's not what we call as the exit test. So that we will now be able to, so the exit test of a grade level, say the end of a certain grade level, say grade 4, will also now be the diagnosis basis for teachers of the receiving grade 5 teacher to know whether students have improved themselves in the previous school year. So dapat ganun po ang nangyayari. Okay? May entry level, exit level, entry level, exit level. Para yung mga test results ng test sa entry level, basis po kay teacher na tumanggap na basis niya para kung paano siya magtuturo. Tapos ang exit level naman niya, basin niya kung effective siya. So effective yung ginawa niyang plano. Yung kanyang exit test also becomes also a diagnostic assessment for the receiving teacher. The results would be basis for her. Sino pa sa kanila sa tingin ko ang hindi pa nakaka-master ng dapat nila na master as prerequisite skills for grade 5. All right. I hope schools will do that. All right. Now we're clear about the concept of diagnostic assessment. Let us now focus more specifically on what is reading comprehension diagnosis. All right. Students enter whether we like it or not. Okay. Even if our students come from the same grade level, using the same curriculum, using the same books, using the same activities. Nonetheless, despite all of this, standardized way of teaching our students, are probably norm-based teaching of our students, students still enter the classroom with diverse backgrounds, skills, and literacy. Reason being is that our students influence the literacy level of our students are highly influenced not just by their teachers or by the experience at school, but also by their experiences at home and their family. Go back again to the sources, the research that I shared to you during the study habits, that 2 of the highest major reasons why students have poor study habits would be the parents. All right. Monitoring of the teacher, monitoring of parents at home, and second would be their regard of education. All right. So, mas malaki impluwensya nun sa bata kaysa sa school. All right? Kahit paanong turo ng mga teacher ng literacy sa school, kung pagdating sa bahay naman hindi naman binibigyan ng importansya ng mga magulang ang literacy na yan, wala rin. Right? Mababa, mas mababa yun. Alright? So, the first step in implementing good reading instruction is to determine students' baseline performance, and that would be diagnosis, or let's call it pre-assessment. Right? These are the things that should be assessed among our students as they enter in one grade level to another, except for grades 1 to grade 3. Anyway, grades 1 to grade 3, mas importante kasi ang listening comprehension skills since they start from oral listen, oracy, and then decoding skills, very important. Next will be language comprehension skills. And then finally, we have the reading comprehension skills. These are the areas that should be assessed among our students so that in general, these are general skills in reading that should be assessed among our students using a particular grade level, a chosen grade level selection, set selection so that teachers will be able to know the strengths and weaknesses of the reading skills of our students as they enter the grade level. All right. And for this afternoon, I'll just focus on the reading comprehension, the listening and reading comprehension, the extremes. The decoding and language comprehension will be delivered by another expert to you. Okay, we're clear on that. All right. So the purpose of reading diagnosis, one is to identify skills that need review. Ano pa yung mga skills na hindi pa na-master ng bata? Hindi lahat ng bata na nanggaling sa previous grade level ay na-master nilang skills. There's a possibility that they're still, on the process of mastering it. So ano yung mga yun na dapat i-continue pa ng teacher? Okay? Although, kahit sinabi po natin na pagdating sa curriculum, sir, the curriculum says that by this year, by this school year, or by this grade level, exit na po dapat ang bata sa skills na yun. Yes, that's true. That's as far as the curriculum is concerned. But based on the results of the diagnosis, some of your students have not yet, reached mastery level of those reading skills, and therefore you need to continue on with that. All other students have, have mastered it, will still benefit from it. But if you exit it on that grade level, knowing that there are still students who have not mastered those skills, it's like, telling them that they will never learn and master those skills anymore. And what happens is that as they move on to the next grade level, since all teachers presumed that the exit skills were in the grade level, teachers will not be teaching that anymore. And the problem becomes compounded. And when they reach high school, all of these problems have already been compounded and is difficult to remedy. Right? Second would be monitor student progress, right? We need to know whether our students, we need to identify those skills that students need to be monitored on so that we would know how we can come in terms of intervention, all right? Or in terms of what intervention to provide them with. Next would be guide teacher planning and instruction. As I've been mentioning that, the results of diagnosis will be basis for teacher how he or she can modify so that it will be based on the needs of the learners. And finally, evaluate effectiveness of the instruction. We need to know, based on the results, whether yung entry-exit niya, tapos pagdating sa entry level ng bata, sa exit level niya, mas mataas siya dapat. Alright? Kasi ganito lang po yan. Pumasok ang bata na matalino, loba siyang mangmang, wala siyang alam, aba, hindi mo ganda ang pagkakuro. Wala man lang improvement. Sir, pumasok siya na average ang kanyang skills sa reading. Pag-graduate niya, ganun pa rin po. Aba, wala pa rin naturo. Ang bata ang magaling, hindi si teacher. Sir, ang bata po, mahinang-mahina. Pumasok po, below average. Pero graduate po siya ng average above. Effective. Mayroong epektong ginawa sa teacher. Ito po dapat ang malaman natin. When we would like to evaluate the effectiveness of our teachers, let us not solely evaluate our teachers based on the lesson plan submitted on time, attendance of our teachers, the documents submitted to whoever requires those documents. What we want to evaluate our teachers on is their effectiveness on delivering the curriculum to the students. Sana lahat tayo nakafocus lang doon. Lahat ng teachers nakafocus lang sa relationship ng teacher at saka ng estudyante. Ang daming pinapagaw kay teacher. Paano nga naman sila magiging effective? All right. I believe that the problem in the Philippines in in making our students become literate is that our teachers are not provided with the sole responsibility to focus on just the basic responsibility of delivering instruction, of course, uh, needs based on the needs of the learners by the diagnosis, and then looking at whether they were effective based on the results of the evaluation or the assessment. I think we have given so much task to our teachers that they are not given, that they are no longer, giving so much effort on instruction. And I would say that we need to review what we are, asking our teachers to do. Let's now proceed to our third question, and definitely the last question. Let me see if I still am on time. Yes, I'm still on time. All right, just now I would do step by step doing the diagnosis. All right. First, this is what I've been doing for the Sisters of Mary, and this is what we've been doing for the past few years. What we do first is we do general assessment. We assess all students by grade level. We would know their exit, their entry level, and their exit level. So we call it the screening, a mass assessment screening. And those students who will pass, we call them independent learners. Therefore, they are within the instruction level. All right. Those who will fail will proceed to another set of assessment. We call it one-on-one assessment. We call it now a specific diagnosis of reading deficits. Ano pa ang hindi pa na master ng bata sa grade level na yon para magawa ng paraan ng teacher sa grade level na to para may continue. Alright? And the part, ang i-diagnose sa mga bata sa one-on-one assessment po namin ay yung listening capacity, yung listening comprehension ng bata. According to Timothy Shanahan, one of the leading experts on reading in the world, okay, I met him way back 2004 or 2005 in the International Reading Association, a presentation here in the Philippines, when it happened here in the Philippines, and I had the chance to talk to him about. I was really interested on early literacy and the relationship of listening skills, early listening comprehension skills to reading. And since he's one of those reading experts who is until now who is thoroughly doing research a lot about the relationship between listening capacity and reading comprehension, I asked him about this. Why do we need to identify the listening capacity of our students if you want to know the reading comprehension of our students? He said that there's a close relationship between the skills of listening capacity and reading capacity. Although the modalities and the set skills in terms of critical thinking and evaluative thinking in terms of progress in the future, reading would be more in the sophisticated level, where as we keep on reading and reading, we get to be more sophisticated in our information processing. But it all starts with listening. If our students, he said that if our students can process information, comprehend information via listening, then there's a possibility that our students can easily acquire skills in reading, since some of the basic comprehension skills in listening are also some of those basic comprehension skills in reading. So if I would like to analyze, I would like to know whether my students have problems with listening. And since most of the interaction happening inside the classroom and the teacher-student relationship is via listening and reading, we may want to also assess and diagnose whether on those two modalities our students have problems with. There's a possibility that our students have problems with listening but do not have problems with reading. So we can just have, say, by listening problem lang ang bata. Pero ang bata na may listening problem tapos hindi makaintindi, ibig sabihin ng bata marunong makinig at meron siyang basic skills, gagamitin natin ang kanyang listening capacity to teach him how to read. So at least meron po tayong a foundation skill to build on the reading skills from our students. And according to Timothy Shanahan, listening capacity is a good foundational skills to build on teaching beginning reading or teaching reading skills or teaching reading comprehension to our students. Next, we have decoding skills. All right, so we need to assess our students in terms of decoding skills. We need to know specifically which of those decoding skills our students have problems with, like phonemic awareness, phonological awareness, alphabet knowledge, and so on and so forth. All right. Next would be language comprehension in terms of vocabulary, their background knowledge. We need to assess them on that. And finally, we have the reading comprehension. Let me focus more on the listening capacity and the reading comprehension, okay? And the decoding skills and language comprehension will be mentioned, but I will not discuss that because that is not my topic for this afternoon. Otherwise, I will not be able to finish for just an hour and a half. All right, I'll just focus on listening capacity and reading comprehension. All right, these are the steps that we do. First, on listening comprehension, okay, we do this. We need to choose a passage for the student to listen to. So it should be a grade level selection. And for you to be able to identify a passage, you may want to create your own. But if there are already existing authentic selections out there, all you have to do is subject that to readability test. For us to know whether the selection is already within the grade level, so or grade level appropriate selections for oral, for listening, and for reading. Okay? So may mga readability tests po yan dyan. So pwede po kayong mag-subscribe online ng mga readability tests. All you have to do is, copy and paste your selection to the software, and then it will yield the results, what grade level is appropriate. 2. All right? Ngayon, kung maggagawa kayo ng sariling selection, meron po tayong sinasabi na may training pa doon. So tatagal pa kayo. I would like to talk about that. Sana mayroon tayong susunod na mga topic on constructing diagnostic tools. Ito po kasi ay diagnosing pa lang po. So proseso po ang pinag-usapan natin. Later on po, kung meron pa tayong time siguro next week, we'll talk about construction. Okay, construction of diagnostic tools. Anyway, so doon kasama po doon ang readability test. So kung wala po kayong alam sa readability tests, suffice to know, there's a possibility that most of the books, selections in the textbooks published have undergone or underwent readability tests. So most of the selections in the basal books are grade level appropriate. So you may want to adopt some of those selections from the basal reading materials. All right, but make sure that these reading materials have not been read by your students. Otherwise, there's what we call as the history effect. They are able to answer the question not because they comprehend it, but because they remember that they've read that and it was discussed already by their previous teacher or some teacher before. All right. Next, let the student read aloud the passage twice. Using grade level appropriate oral fluency, intonation, and enunciation. That means you as a teacher will have to read aloud the selection. Now, if you have a problem with the reading aloud it with proper oral fluency and intonation, enunciation, what you can do perhaps is record it or have someone record the selection so that you play it twice to your students, okay, or to an individual student. The listening comprehension can be the listening of a selection can be delivered as a class, okay? Even the answering of the questions as a class. Pwedeng hindi siya individual. Pwedeng mass po siya. All right? Ask students comprehension questions, literal and interpretive, about the passage listened to. All right? Rate the student's response using an individual student response sheet. Okay? Kung ito ay individual po, kaharap mo ang bata, tapos hawak mo yung kanyang individual response sheet, tapos hawak naman niya yung makikinig lang siya. Okay? And then praise the student, always smile. Kasi nga, there's a possibility hindi niya masasagot dahil takot siya sa'yo. So, simula pa lang, kung nagdadiagnose ka ng dapat pleasing personality. So, hi. So, yes, praise the student for his or her effort and tell him that you will proceed to another activity. Ang ginawa ko pong design for the Sisters in Mary of Diagnosis is mayroon na po siyang script. Mas maganda pa kasi may script kasi nga I assumed that not all teachers being hired by the school have backgrounds on making diagnosis. So here's an example of that. So listening comprehension. Andyan ang ano. This is not this is not a timed exercise. Say, I am going to play a record 2 times. Listen carefully to the story the first time in order to get the general drift. Then, on the second time the story will be played, pay attention to details. Do you understand the instructions? First, play the story. Listen very carefully. So kung play po siya. Kung hindi play, ang sasabihin mo, I am going to read aloud to you a story twice. Listen carefully. So kayo po ang paggumawa ng instrument po kayo, diagnostic instrument, tingnan nyo kung anong modality ninyo. Kung kayo may audio po kayo, di yung script nyo may ano. So bakit kailangan may script? You'll have to give your teachers a script dahil baka si teacher ay nagbigay na ng mga clue. Yung, uy, makinig ka na maayos ha. Magkaiba kasi yung nagbibigay ka ng instruction na may nagbibigay ka ng clue. So our instructions must be clear, objective, but at the same time, delivered nice to our students. Okay? Sample lang po natin ng read aloud ng teacher. Basahin po ito. Okay? Kunwari, ano na tayo ha? Listening comprehension tayo. Assessment. Math po. Isang buong klase o kaya lahat ng grade 5, kunwari, or grade 6. Good morning, grade 5 students. Kahit online po yan, students. I will read aloud to you a selection 2 times. Listen carefully to the story the first time in order to get the general gist. Then on the second time that I will read aloud to you the selection, pay attention to details. Do you understand the instructions? Okay, if you do, this is the first time I will read aloud the selection. Listen very carefully. A wolf who was out. Dapat hindi makikita ng bata ang selection ha. Dapat kung manto, ikaw lang nakikita nila sa video. Kung online po ang assessment niyo, ikaw lang nakikita ng mga estudyante. Alright? Or kung reading aloud. Kung audio, i-play mo lang yung audio. Pero kunwari read aloud ito. A wolf who was out searching for a meal saw a goat feeding on grass on top of a high cliff. Wishing to get the goat to climb down from the rock and into his grasp, he called out to her. Excuse me, dear goat, he said in a friendly voice. It is very dangerous for you to be at such a height. Do come down before you injure yourself. Besides, the grass is much greener and thicker down here. Take my advice and please come down from that high cliff. But the goat knew too well of the wolf's intent. You don't care if I endure myself or not. You don't care if I eat good grass or bad. What you care about is eating me, said the goat. All right, I will now read the selection the second time around, but this time, pay attention to details. All right, so read the selection the second time around. Hindi ko na ulitin ha. Pero dapat ganun ng speed, enunciated ang sounds. Hindi, a wolf word, dapat may tamang intonation. Alright? I hope you guys out there recorded this para makita niyo kung paano talaga ang pagre-record. Tapos modulated ang boses. Sige, for those who are still listening that would like to record it, sige, babasahin ko ulit. Second play of the story. Okay. I will now read aloud to you the story the second time around. This time, pay attention to details. A wolf who was out searching for a meal saw a goat feeding on grass on top of a high cliff. Wishing to get the goat to climb down from the rock and into his grasp, he called out to her. Excuse me, dear goat, he said in a friendly voice. It is very dangerous for you to be at such a height. Do come down before you injure yourself. Besides, the grass is much greener and thicker down here. Take my advice and please come down from that high cliff. But the goat knew too well of the wolf's intent. You don't care if I endure myself or not. You don't care if I eat good grass or bad. What you care about is eating me, said the goat. All right? Yep. Now, after that, pwedeng ang gawin ng bata ay bibigyan mo sila ng answer sheet. Pero na silang sinasabi na answer sheet. Tapos ang part listening and questions na wala pong multiple choice ang diagnosis po ha. Wala pong multiple choice. Not multiple choice. It's either they know or they do not. It's either they understood or they did not. But we accept similar ideas. So let's now have, ito gagamitin nila. So you're going to ask 6 questions out of the listening comprehension na binasa mo lang 2 beses. So ito, sasabihin mo na ba? Sorry. Answer the questions that I will ask you. I will say the question twice. When I say answer, that's when you write down your answer on your answer sheet. Do you understand the instructions? All right, repeat the instructions. Answer the questions that I will ask you. I will say the questions twice. When I say answer, that's when you write down your answer on your answer sheet. Do you understand instructions? Very good. Question number 1. Dapat hindi nandun ang sagot, syempre. Pinapakita ko lang sa inyo kasi itong script ng teacher. Okay? Kasi hawak-hawak ng teacher yung script, yung diagnostic instrument. Tapos yung sheet naman na to, itong sasagot ng answer sheet ng bata, nasa niya. Sasagutan niya. Alright? Question number 1. Who are the characters in the story? Who are the characters in the story? So, nandoon ang mga elements, kung ano ang mga elements ang tinasagot doon. Okay? Number 2. What was begin? So, begin dapat sa begin, your answer. Stop. Second question. What was the problem of the wolf with the goat? What was the problem of the wolf with the goat? Answer. Mga 30 seconds. 15 to 30 seconds. Stop. Third question. What was the wolf telling the goat to do? What was the wolf telling the goat to do? Start. Answer. Stop. Fourth question. What was the real intent of the wolf? What was the real intent of the wolf? Answer. Stop. Question number 5. How did the goat respond to the wolf? How did the goat respond to the wolf? Answer. Stop. Sixth and last question. What is the theme of the story? What is the theme of the story? Answer. Stop. And then you say, thank you. Let us now proceed to the next listening activity. Huwag mong sabihin the next test. Mas madali tanggapin ng bata na parang exercise lang sa. So you may say, let us proceed to the next listening exercise or listening activity. All right? So huwag sabihin the next test. Okay? So the results would be, ito po ang aming ginamit na, na level using the 98% comprehension. So nandun po, you can, nakalagay po yan kay, I call this guy, Thomas Gunny, the levels of questions. Nakalagay naman po dun kung ano mga levels ng, kung ito po ay independent instructional frustration level, the levels of comprehension. Okay, so 0 to 1 mistakes out of 6 would be independent level, 2 mistakes instructional level, and 3 or more mistakes frustration level. All right, so let's proceed to the second question. Sorry po, hindi ko po masasagot, hindi ko po mabigay sa inyo yung how to construct kasi nga diagnosis na lang tayo. So, ang susunod na series ba dapat is constructing diagnostic instruments. Although may mga meron na pong existing diagnostic instrument. So, at least yung proseso na ito, magagamit na. Alright? Okay. Silent reading. Wait, not dito. Listening comprehension number 2. Expository. I am going to play a record 2 times. So I'm going to read aloud to you a selection 2 times. Listen carefully to the selection the first time in order to get the general drift. Then on the second time, the selection I will read aloud to you. Pay attention to details. Do you understand the instructions? Alright. Kung walang tanong, hindi nagpaulit ng mga bata, diretso ka na po. You say, first reading aloud of the selection. The wolf is a symbol of guardianship, ritual, loyalty, and spirit. Wolf has the ability to make quick and firm emotional attachments and often need to trust their own instincts. Wolves have keen senses, large canine teeth, powerful jaws, and the ability to pursue prey at 60 kilometers or 37 miles per hour equip the gray wolf well for a predatory way of life. A typical northern male may be about 2 meters or 6.6 feet long, including the bushy half-meter long tail. Their personality traits are those of powerful instinct, intuition, and high intelligence. Thus, they teach us to do the same, to trust our hearts and minds and have control over our own lives. I will now read to you aloud the story or the selection the second time around. This time, pay attention to details. Basahin ulit, okay? So dapat ganun din po ang fluency natin. And then, ask questions ulit. Alright, ask questions ulit. Bigay mo ulit. Dapat kanina, tinanggal mo yung, yung answer sheet. Tapos ibabalik mo ulit sa kanila. And then, sasabihin mo ngayon mga tanong. So you say, answer the questions that I will ask you. Ay nako, hirap talaga ng ano. Okay. When I say answer, that's when you write down your answer on your answer sheet. Do you understand the instructions? Very good. And then read the questions again. Nakalagay po doon, what is being talked about selection. Alam ko nasa utak niyo po ngayon, sir, paano gumawa ng mga tanong na to? We will have a session on ito kasi constructed na yung diagnostic instrument. Nagawa ko na po to, validate ko na po to at ginagamit namin po sa Sister Seminary. So like all other schools out there, dapat meron din kayo. So you must hire a consultant. Pag na po ako, marami pong consultant ng mga reading experts yan out there. Hire nyo po para makagawa po ng instrument na na-contextualize. There are a lot of international reading instruments or reading comprehension diagnostic instruments. Kailan po yung konteksto po ay pang-Amerikano, pang-Australian, pang-Switzerland, pang-Singaporean. Kailangan po, ganun din po ang proseso, pero dapat ang gagawin pong mga materials po ay within the context of the Philippines. Bakit po wolf ang inano po natin dito? Dahil nga, based on our survey, ang mga bata ay mas attuned to dogs and the canine family. So, yun ang mga pinamili namin. Meron kaming survey muna ng mga interests. Okay? Same po. So, the scoring system would be again on 0 to 1 mistake independent level, 2 mistakes instructional level, and 3 or more mistakes. And then we proceed to the third, which is silent reading exercises. The silent reading exercise is composed of 2 again, narrative and expository. So what do you do? How do you do it? First, tell the student to read the oral reading passage once more, but this time silently. So, silent lang po siya. Kanina, ikaw sorry, ang pawis ko, nagpunas ako. Kanina, ikaw ang nagbasa. This time around, ang mga bata magbabasa. Pero, silent lang. Silent reading po sila. Okay? Silent reading sila. And time po yun. Naka-time siya. So once the student has finished reading the passage, retrieve back the passage and asking her comprehension questions, that's ranging from literal to interpretive questions about the passage. Record the responses of the students using the student response sheet. Thank the student for participating in the activity and inform her that you will be providing him or her with the detailed results of the activity. Palagi activity lang ng results. Okay? Example po tayo, narrative 1. Ito po yung naka-laminate na papel tapos ibibigay sa bata. Alright? Kung hindi naka-laminate po, ito po yung nakalagay sa kanilang mga ipapa-distribute sa mga bata para isa-isa. Alright? Or naka-flash po siya para lahat sila sabay-sabay basa. Kasi may lang naman siya. Short passage lang siya. Okay? Let's read. Silent reading po tayo. A man and his wife owned a very special goose. Every day the goose would lay a golden egg, which made the couple very rich. Just think, said the man's wife. If we could have all the golden eggs that are inside the goose, we could be richer much faster. You're right, said her husband. We wouldn't have to wait for the goose to lay her egg every day. So the couple killed the goose and cut her open, only to find that she was just like every other goose. She had no golden eggs inside of her at all, and they had no more golden eggs. All right? So nakatime po siya. So ito po yung instructions po natin. Okay? This is a time test. When I say begin, you start reading the selection. If I say stop, you stop. And then I will be collecting back the selection. You may reread the selection several times if you have finished early and you have not heard me say stop. Do you understand what you're supposed to do? Okay, 3 minutes po ito. How did we know? Meron po tayong computation po niyan. It's the total number of words divided by 60. That will be how many minutes it would take. All right? So babasahin ng bata yan for 3 minutes. Tapos kung natapos siya ng mas maga, sabi niya, sabi niya, Mom, I'm done. No, we're going to answer the questions, comprehension questions together. So if you have finished early, you may reread the selection so that it would help you understand the selection. So when you say stop, all right, time is up. Then collect the selections. Let me get the selections now. All right. Then balik mo sa mga bata ang kanilang answer sheet. Or kunin ang answer sheet kung nakalagay sa ilalim ng kanilang mesa, or kung nandun saan man, kung nasa bahay lang sila, o di kunin nila ulit ang answer sheet. Now, answer the questions that I will ask you. I will say the questions twice. When I say answer, that's when you write down your answer on your answer sheet. Do you understand the instructions? Kung hindi, ulitin mo ulit instructions. O nawala ng tanong, very good. Question number 1, who are the characters in the story? Again, who are the characters in the story? 2, what did the frog notice in the story? 2, what did the frog notice in the story? 3, what did the frog feel upon seeing the ox? Parang mali yata ang nalagay ko dito na selection, nagpangatanong. And then what did the frog do? Then how will you describe the frog in French and what happened to the frog in the end? Same po rin paggamit po natin. Thank the student. Thank you. Let us now proceed to the next listening. Nakalagay sa listening activity. So dapat reading activity. Mali nga ating script. Okay. Reading comprehension expository naman po tayo. Tama pala. This is a time test. When you say begin, start the timer. Distribute the expository selection to students. Say, read the selection 2 to 3. Selection 2 for 3 minutes. When I say begin, you start reading the selection. If I say stop, you stop. And then I will be collecting back the selection. You may reread the selection several times if you have finished early and you have not heard me say stop. Do you understand what you're supposed to do? If answer is no, repeat the instruction, emphasize it using Filipino. Kung hindi naintindihan ng bata sa English, pwede mo kasing i-explain sa Filipino. Okay? The instructions in terms of understanding the activity should not be a barrier too. But again, it will be the choice of the school. If you think your school has implemented an English-speaking campus and it extended to the homes, then I do not see the need for the translation to Filipino, but say it's mostly for the public schools and our students may not have the vocabulary to understand oral instruction. So pwede mo siyang i-translate para at least yung focus ng bata ay yung comprehension, not comprehension of the instructions. Okay? And then after that, yan, bibigay selection sa kanila. Ostriches are large flightless birds. Babasahin mo sa kanila ng 3 minutes. Tapos pag sila mong stop, orally read the questions again. Babasa sa kanila sa answer sheet. And then, what is the selection all about? How are frogs and toads described similarly? How is a toad classified? Where do frogs spend most of their lives? How can frogs be differentiated from toads? And then what is being talked about in selection. So thank the student, and then the results will be 1 out of dependent level mistakes and so on and so forth. So ito na yung pag-check po ninyo. All right. And then, pwede mag-proceed. Ito pong oral reading exercise for Miscue analysis are for those students who will fail the math assessment, who will fail the oral and silent reading activity. Okay? So bakit po? Para malaman natin ngayon kung ano ang specifically, ano yung mga deficits, ano mga areas na problema or ang bata hindi na master ang skills kaya hindi siya makaintindi. Okay? So, ang gagawin po mo ngayon ay there would be another instrument, diagnostic instrument using the reading, using for Miscue analysis. Choose a passage for the child to read aloud. As the child reads, take notes on words read correctly and incorrectly. Let the student read aloud the passage once and ask permission to record it from Miscue analysis. Kailangan mo siya record kasi hindi ka makagawa ng running records while the student is reading it aloud. So, read aloud lang ang bata talaga. Make sure to put the student at ease by telling him or her that the results of the activity will be used to help him or her throughout the school year and will not be used in any grade and any to grade him or her. And then after the oral reading, retrieve back the passage. Thank the student for participating in the activity and inform him or her that you will provide him or her with the detailed results of the activity. Those are for those students who failed the test. So, let's summarize. Ito yung sample po ng Miscue analysis namin. Ginawa, which I designed for the Sisters of Mary. I have, ano yung mga misprint. Halimbawa, sabi ng bata, Mary wanted a now bike. So, pwede pong gawin po natin ang new, dahil ang new po niya ay naging now. So, was it mispronunciation, substitution, reversal, inversion, omission, repetition, hesitation, or correction? So, ang nangyari po dito, mispronunciation. Kasi magkaiba po ang new sa now. So, ano po siya? Graphophonic, syntactic, or semantics? Na bago ang meaning, magkaiba ang meaning ng new at saka now. So, I would go for semantics. Error niya dito ay semantics. Okay? I would love to give you a separate training on Miscue analysis, but for those who are listening right now, there are a lot of literature, a lot of materials of Miscue analysis online, but I tell you, Miscue analysis cannot be done singularly to assess your students' comprehension level. It is used to identify specific problems of our students as regards reading comprehension. Dapat unahin nyo muna ang pag-assess sa comprehension. Okay, sa reading comprehension ng mga bata. Ngayon, kung bumagsak ang mga bata, gamitin nyo na Miscue analysis to identify specific problems sa graphophonics, syntactic, or semantics. Alright? And then, you need also to observe students whether when they read aloud during the one-on-one assessment, does the student reads word for word, reads in a jerky way with little intonation, reads missing outlines or losing the place in the text, reads without regard for punctuation, reads stressing every syllable, reads fluently with hesitation only before difficult words, reads pausing after phrases and whole sentences of punctuation points, and understands the overall meaning of the text. This is more of understanding the language, okay? The language, yung punctuation marks, vocabulary. So we are assessing now via the Miscue analysis. Ina-analyze din natin orally yung kanilang language comprehension. And then, pagkatapos mag-notation doon, mag-strengths and weaknesses ka, mag-summarize ka, and that will be basis for your instruction. Okay? On that note, so, na-assess natin ang bata ng listening capacity to reading comprehension, and then decoding will be given by another topic, language comprehension will be given by another webinar. Pag na-identify natin, pag bumagsak ang bata, continue po siya sa, ayan po, pag ang bata nag-fail dito sa mga test na to, magwa one-on-one assessment siya ulit. Okay? Pag nag-pass po siya, independent. Ngayon, there's a possibility kasi during the math assessment or general assessment, may mga bata na wala lang sa mood, kaya bumagsak sila. Pero pagdating sa one-on-one, wala ka lang mali ang problema, ibabalik mo siya sa independent learners. Okay? May mga ganun pong, we had a lot of situation na na maraming bumagsak na bata. As in, fail talaga siya sa kanyang comprehension. Pero during the one-on-one, sabi ko, bakit nag-fail to? Ang galing pala ng batang to. They were independent readers. So we have to go back. Kung in-interview namin, sabi niya, sir, kasi ayoko pong punta sa first, ayoko pong mapunta, ayoko kasi mapunta sa first section kung may sectioning po siya. Kung ginagamit, gusto ko kasi mga classmates ko ay yung mga kabarkada ko. Yung pala gusto niya mag-fail kasi most of his classmates or barkada ay nandun sa section na yun. Okay. Pero mas magandang ganito, nalalaman mo kasi ang kalokohan ng mga bata. Now, based on the results, you can now group your students according to corrective reading program or a corrective reading program or remedial reading program. So corrective reading program bata kung students with proficient comprehension levels and narratives but with minimal to extensive comprehension deficits and expository, all right? Expository text and minimal to extensive syntactic and semantic deficits. Ito may mga problema sa, based on the Miscue analysis, may mga problema sila sa kanilang syntactic at semantic. Ibig sabihin, hindi nila lamang language, may problema sila sa language, may problema sila sa meaning, okay? The semantics. Sila po ay nag-struggle sa pag-intindi ng informational, that will be textbooks or reading selections for math, science, and all other subject areas na hindi narratives. Most of the subjects, by grade 4 up to grade 6, mas marami na pong informational text. So definitely ang bata mag-struggle. So ang tawag lang po natin corrective. Ibig sabihin, kailangan lang silang bigyan ng intensive program to provide them with strategies to understand or comprehend informational text and narratives. But for students who have extensive comprehension on both narrative and expository, as in talagang hindi nila bubagsak sa both comprehension of narrative and expository, and then may language deficit po siya, both extensive syntactic, semantic, talagang remedial po siya. I would suggest that these students be grouped as one, tapos isang teacher ang i-assign sa kanila, reading teacher talaga, ilalabas siya sa klase ng mga estudyanteng regular. Alright? Hindi mo sila tatawagin na mga star sections, pero isang section lang po siya para ang magtuturo na teacher ay alam ang pangangailangan ng mga bata at siya na magtuturo ng lahat ng subjects. That is for the early grades. Pero kung ito po ay nasa for the early grades, especially for grade 1 to grade 3 na pwede natin gawing self-contained na isang reading teacher magtuturo ng lahat ng subject area tapos lahat ng estudyante na remedial, isang section siya para ma-focus ang kanilang literacy skills at the same time learning how to understand selections in other subject areas. Pero kung sila po ay nasa grade 4 hanggang high school na po sila, tapos remedial reading po ang kanilang program, you need to enlist the help of the other subject area teachers to help you with the program. Kasi dapat turuan din sila na i-transfer yung skills ng mga bata ng reading skills in the subject area. Ang problema po kasi talaga sa higher grade levels is that most of the content area teachers assume that their students are already readers. So I suggest na magkaroon po ng separate remedial reading program for the students na ang maghahawak talaga ay reading teacher. All right? With that being said, I would like now to entertain questions from the people. Again, creating diagnostic instruments is not part of my topic. It is on the process of diagnosing. So I used yung nagawa ko na po na existing instruments ko po ng diagnosis. How to create diagnostic instruments for reading comprehension is another topic altogether. Miscue analysis for diagnosing specific graphophonic, syntactic, and semantic miscues of students will be another topic altogether. Those are for constructing diagnostic tools for reading. This is diagnosing. All right. With that being said, I know you have a lot of questions, so I'm now ready to entertain questions. Jillian, please.
Thank you very much, brother. Now we will proceed to the question and answer portion. Our first question is from Marian de la Paz. What if we lack of materials to properly diagnose students' comprehension skills? And how can we do that in distance learning?
Ma'am, yun nga, the distance learning, mas madali nga po sa distance learning kasi you can deliver it individually. So sa distance learning, so kung listening po siya, all you have to do is read aloud without showing the selection. And then ipa-flash mo lang, parang through PowerPoint, pa-flash mo lang yung questions. And then all the result on ang mga sagot ng mga bata ngayon ay kukolektahin mo na lang. Or ito po ay naka-electronic. Kung ang mga bata may mga computer, electronic po ang sheets nila, tapos nasasubmit na agad sa teacher using Google Docs perhaps. Kung hindi naman po Google Docs ang gamit ng mga bata po, pwede pong gawin naman po nila ay hard copy na sheets, tapos ipapakolekta sa kung sino man ang messenger sa school ninyo, collect time para ma-rate nyo po. Okay? Sa Sisters sa Mary, ginamit po namin ay, ano ba itong ginamit namin? There's an app for it. Nakalimutan ko na talaga. Parang ini-scan lang siya. Anyway, I'll include that later on when we have a new topic tomorrow when I talk about how to make modules. Mas madali po i-deliver itong ang diagnosis to students via online kasi nga po pwede mong gamitin ang platforms ng PowerPoint. Papakita mo sila ang mga reading selections, you don't have to print them out. You'll have to flash them, tapos sabay-sabay nila babasahin, tapos nakatime po siya. Now, the question on the materials, yun lang po. For the Department of Education, for those in the public schools, for the early grades, you may use EGRA. That's Early Grade Reading Assessment in English. That will be for grade 3, for Filipino in grade 2, and Mother Tongue in grade 1. Now, if you don't have a copy of that, please you may want to inform your supervisors, supervisors in English and Filipino and Mother Tongue to get you a copy of these instruments in the central office. Isa po ako sa consultants na naggawa ng EGRA na yan. And I was hired by USAID for the Philippines, and then we contextualize and we standardize. And I think also it's been incorporated in the ELNA, that's Early Language Assessment and Language, or ELNA, LNA, Early Language Numeracy Assessment. Okay? Nandun po siya, naka-integrate din po siya. Now, kung hindi po for grades 4 to 6 po, pwede nyo gamitin ang PhilErie. Gawin nyo lang po ng tama ang PhilErie. The PhilErie is also good as an instrument for diagnosis. Sir, paano po kami sa high school? Wala po kami talaga yan. Yan po ang malaking problema sa Pilipinas kasi wala po talaga. In my case po kasi, I was being the consultant of the Sisters of Mary, and I'm a reading specialist, I had to design a diagnostic instrument for them. Tinuruan ko po lahat ang in charge doon sa center, tinuruan ko sila paano gumawa ng instrument and then how it's validated. Readability test, the questions, ano ang level ng questions, ganun po. For those teachers who would like to do diagnosis, I highly suggest, especially for the private schools associations, ay private schools association ng mga Cavite, ng kung anumang association na yun, please hire one reading consultant or any consultant na may mas maraming lawak ang knowledge para tulungan kayo gumawa ng instruments. Now, I would like to recommend also CEM, Center for Educational Measurement. I was once their consultant way back 2009 and 10. Meron po silang instruments on this. You may want to purchase their instruments. CEM, the Center for Educational Measurement. Meron po silang assessment on comprehension, especially for high school. So kung wala po talaga, I highly suggest each school create their own assessment tools. Kung hindi pa kayo nakagawa po nun, hindi ko po alam kung paano gagawin. Pero importante kasi talaga na may diagnostic tools kayo per grade level as the entry level at saka exit level para well-informed po si teacher na tumatanggap. Ano ba ang literacy level ng mga estudyanteng tinatanggap po? Kasi baka ang haba-haba ng mga selections na pinabibigay ko, ang haba-haba ng mga gradings na pinabibigay ko, yung pala struggling readers sa mga estudyante ko. Without this information provided for our teachers are at a loss in how to help our students. So I am encouraging all school administrators, both public and private, to invest more on diagnostic instruments for every grade level on literacy and numeracy. Ito naman po ang pinaka-importanting dapat i-analyze natin sa mga bata, literacy and numeracy, kasi ito ang dalawang skills na tumutulong sa bata na mag-survive sa lahat ng academic programs natin sa school. Alright? If students have good foundation on their literacy and numeracy, then I think our students will have easy way of learning math, sciences, on all other subject areas using literacy and numeracy. Okay, so sorry po sa kung wala po kayong instrument. For the elementary po, again, EGRA Mother Tongue for grade 1, EGRA for Filipino grade 2, EGRA for English grade 3, or ELNA. Please contact for the public school po ito, contact your supervisors on English, Filipino, and Mother Tongue to help you get a copy of this instrument from the central office. If not from the central office, from the regional office. Kung wala sa regional office, sa division office. Sir, may kopya ba kayo nun? Of course, may kopya ako dahil ako yung consultant yan. Nasa akin namang original copies niyan kasi isa ako sa mga nag-design yan. Pero syempre, in respect to central office, dahil binigay na po namin yan sa kanila, sila na po dapat ang magda-download, magbababa yan sa inyo. But I'm more than willing to give orientation how the EGRA is utilized. I know a lot. Marami po akong mga kasama doon sa EGRA nun. Dr. Gutierrez is one of the experts, Dr. Paralumaneron, and Dr. Dino Campo. Kung wala po kayong instrument for high school, gagawa po talaga kayo. You'll have to create one using readability tests. Hanggang dun lang po talaga magawa ko. Pero masasabi ko lang po, please invest more on diagnostic instruments. Hindi nyo babaguhin yan eh. It will be fixed eh. Yun na po ang sinasabi po natin na entry and exit test on literacy and numeracy. Alright, thank you very much. Do we have a second question, Jillian?
Thank you, brother. Our next question is from Bebet Kalipara. The DepEd had been adopting the multiple choice type of test to determine comprehension. Are you amenable to
it depends on the focus. If the assessment is for summative and formative, for summative, pwede po siyang multiple choice. Pag formative po siya at saka diagnostic, I'm totally against that because we would like to know whether they know or not. Pag summative kasi is we would like to know the quality of the recall. Pag formative kasi, we would like to know talagang nalaman ba niya o hindi. Kung diagnostic din, alam ba niya o hindi. So hindi dapat multiple choice. It's supply talaga. Ang dami po natin dapat aralin in terms of creating assessment tools po, I am for multiple choices for summative tests kasi the summative test is looking at the quality. Magkaiba kasi ang formative assessment sa summative assessment. The formative assessment is for us to know whether they are getting it or they are learning from it. So it's either they know or they do not know. So hindi ako mag-multiple choice sa formative assessment. Pag ito po ay summative assessment na po, I know that my students already, kasi nag-formative assessment na sila eh. Ibig sabihin, nalaman natin, nakukuha na nila. Sa summative assessment, I would like to know the quality, ano ang level ng pagre-recall at pagpuproseso nila. So pwede ako mag-multiple choice because only through multiple choice that I will be able to create assessment STEM that assesses students different levels of processing using the taxonomy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, brother. And our last question is from Bing Ginid. Sir, how can we assess listening capacity here in our place? Most of our learners do not even have smartphones or laptops.
Oo nga po, ma'am. Alam mo, oo nga. Tapos distance education and diagnostic, wala rin silang audio, radyo. May ginawa kasi ang Cagayan de Oro. Ang ginawa nila ay ginamit nila ang radio station, local radio station to air out. Tapos talagang nagkaroon sila ng gano'n. I don't know if it is still being continued on today, but there was a time na yun pong ginawa na po ng Xavier University. I was one of their consultants too. Not one, but the only consultant na hinire nila. That can be done. Kaya lang depende ulit sa local government yan eh. If the local government knows the importance of literacy, to help their constituents become better members of society and their community, they would invest so much on literacy, especially in diagnosis, para malaman niya paano sila makakapasok para tumulong. Alas, what we can do perhaps here is, hindi niyo po talaga maasas ang listening capacity hanggat hindi well-trained. Alam nga naman ang magulang, baka magulang mali din ang kanyang oral fluency. So, instead na ang naintindihan ng bata, hindi niya maintindihan dahil si nanay at saka si tatay mali ang pagkakabasa. Hindi mo pwede nating i-record dahil wala nga silang player, dahil poorest of the poor nga naman sila. Ang ginawa kasi namin sa Sister Sa Mary ay mass eh. Kaya lang, siyempre stay in sila sa school. Sa inyo po na nasa mga bahay po sila, wala po. Siguro take out na lang listening capacity. Gawin nyo noon, take out listening capacity, diretso na lang kayo sa reading. Ang ginagawa lang naman po natin na magkaroon ng assessment on listening capacity is the possibility na meron na silang basic skills on comprehension via listening. So, kung bumagsak ang bata sa reading comprehension, then kung wala kang listening test, di kasi nga sa distance education, then i-assume mo na lang po na may problema din siya sa listening comprehension. So, no need for you to do listening comprehension. Pwede ka na lang reading. Ang reading kasi pwede mong modular, ipapadala mo sa kanila kasama doon, tapos ibabalik mo lang. So, naka-booklet type po siya ng test, tapos babalik mo lang sa'yo. So, pwede po yan. So, I'm suggesting na take out the listening capacity since gadget-wise, kulang ang mga bata at makakompromise din naman ang results. So, just focus on silent reading, comprehension, diagnostic parts of your instrument. Thank you very much. I would really love, this is very interesting. That's why I suggested to Vibal na diagnosis po talaga this week. Kasi nga sabi ko, wait lang, nag-intervention na tayo pero hindi pa tayo nagtutalk about diagnosis. Dapat diagnosis muna. Pagkatapos ng diagnosis ay creation of diagnostic tools. Pagkatapos ng diagnostic tools ay evaluation of results. How do we use the results? How do we interpret the results for us to create the proper modules? Eh nangyari na una na ang modules, di ba, presentation. Anyway, it's a process. It's a process of refining our services to you guys out there. But it's very much appreciated that you guys are listening to us. And we are here. Personally, I really would love to share the things I've been doing. And that's my mantra in life. This is how I was trained by my mentors before. That knowledge, if not shared, is nothing. So this is here. I am here trying to help you out there. So I will suggest to Vibal that the next series of topics will be constructing assessment tools. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That's all the questions we have for now. Any last reminders to our viewers for today, po, brother?
Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys out there, but we need to end my talk, and there are several topics that you need to attend for the whole week of series of diagnosis, right? So here are some of my conclusions, some implications, just tying loose ends and posing challenge to teachers and primary caregivers out there, right? So it is important to keep in mind the goal of this process, diagnosis. What's wrong? What's the hang up? What's getting in the way of learning or of students providing what they in fact actually know? Dapat daw ang iniisip ng mga teacher, ano ang cause, bakit nahihirapan ang bata? Diagnosis is a way of identifying the root cause of the problem of the students. Like my topic last week was about identifying the root cause of the poor study habits of our students. And we found out that the root cause of the poor study habits would be at home, their experience at home. But remember, literacy is taught at school, hindi sa bahay. Magkaibang ang study habits sa bahay nagsisimula. Pero ang pagtuturo ng pagbasa at pagsulat at pakikinig ay nagsisimula sa school. So kung ang bata hindi marunong magbasa at hindi marunong magsulat at may problema sa pakikinig, critical listening skills, na tinuturo ko specifically sa school, din sa school dapat may problema nun. So dapat ang tanong ng mga teacher, saan nagkamali? Saan nagkaroon ng breakdown sa pagtuturo sa bata? Sa elementarya po ba? Kung sa elementarya po ba, ito po ay sa early grades or sa middle grades? Anong mga hindi naturo? Para kung nasa level ko siya, magagawin ko ng paraan. Ang tanong ulit, may kapasidad ba ako para turuan ng bata? Kung ngayon identify ko na ang problema ng bata, kaya ko bang punan ang pangailangan ng mga bata? Baka kailangan ko ng training din. So, hindi lang intervention para sa mga bata ang pagtuturo ng pagbasa sa mga bata, kundi intervention din para sa mga teachers kasi there's a possibility that no matter how efficient, effective the diagnosis that they provide for our students and the results are called, are ready for the teachers to evaluate and use for planning, and yet our teachers are not provided with the ample opportunity and trainings to be good teachers of reading, regardless of the subject that they teach, wala pa rin gamit yun. Right? Next, the big idea behind diagnostic teaching is to to illuminate and remove barriers to students' understanding. Alamin natin kung ano mga problema ng mga bata. Alright? And, sorry. And this isn't about good grades. Pag nagda-diagnose na tayo sa mga bata at nag-intervention na tayo sa bata, huwag na natin isipin ng good grades or high-level thinking or compliance or even understanding. Rather, the goal is to establish a pattern of diagnosis of diagnostic teaching so that you shift our focus from teaching and reteaching to systematic guided diagnosis of academic performance barriers. Sometimes, alam po natin na hindi pa nakuha ng bata ang basics, siguro i-compromise muna natin ituturo sa curriculum. Unahin muna natin ang hindi pa nakukuha ng bata kasi kahit tapusin na dati ng curriculum, kung yung mga skills na dapat nakuha ng bata ay hindi pa rin, edi ipopromote lang din ng bata natin sa isang grade level na wala pa rin natutunan. Again, yun po problema sa Philippine education system. We need to finish the curriculum. And the basis for an effective teacher is looking at whether natapos ang curriculum o naituro lahat ng nasa curriculum. Dapat hindi eh. Dapat siyan po natin dapat ay tatlo. Ang results ng diagnosis, ang results ng post-test, at saka ang curriculum. Eh paano kung hindi kaya ng teacher nga lahat yun? O di dapat mayroong support system din ng school. Alright? Finally, let's read this expert from Ren Sebastian. Ren Sebastian said that I really love Ren Sebastian. He took a certificate of teaching in Harvard University. Harvard University is one of my one of my dream schools I would like to graduate from. Kahit lang certificate, okay? Studies have shown that the best hope for these children is to place them full-time with a strong reading teacher, a teacher who has a sophisticated understanding of the process of learning to read, a tendency to use assessment data to inform individualized instruction, and a talent for engaging students in focused and interesting instructional activities. Harvard Graduate School of Education professor Catherine Snow has reported research findings that indicate young at-risk students are placed with strong teachers for 2 consecutive years are very likely to be successful readers. Similarly, she has shown that students who are not at risk are likely to have difficulties learning to read if they are placed with weak teachers for 2 consecutive years. Oh, diba? So, here's my challenge to you teachers out there. Who are you? A strong or a weak reading teacher? Hope you think about the answer to this and you continue learning with us. We will help you become a strong reading teacher in the process. Be with us, with Vibal, and we will be partners in our lifelong journey towards making the lives of our students better in distance education or face-to-face education. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you tomorrow on my topic, preparing modules for online learning. Thank you very much.
There we have it. In behalf of Vibal Group Incorporated, I would like to thank our speaker for today for this eye-opening and insightful learning session. It is an honor to have you with us today, brother. And to all our Kavibal viewers, all thanks to you for your continuous patronage to our daily learning session. We encourage you to subscribe and watch on our official Vibal Facebook and YouTube channel. Muli, maraming salamat at magandang brother. And to all our Kavibal viewers, all thanks to you for your continuous patronage to our daily learning session. We encourage you to subscribe and watch on our official